Uh-oh. Okay. Warming up. Right. Okay. Wow, it connected YouTube first for some reason. Normally it connects Facebook first.
But we're warming up. I'm starting to wonder if we should really wait for that connection to happen. Because in theory, it already has a 3-to-1. So in theory, it's supposed to be.
But it's still not. It's still not. I think the 3-to-1 is extra time it has added to this entire procedure.
But it's still recording from that 3-to-1 point and not from the connecting to the stream.
But
point.
if you look at like the YouTube videos, it'll really be like I'll be mid hum. There's a reason for my humming. You know, it's calibrating. Oops, I should have done that. Okay, let's get the thingamabobs. I tag you in it so it becomes more visible on your page.
Okay. Oh, that's all confusing me.
Oh yeah, that is a weird interface.
And again, despite already doing this practically almost every other day, the system has not realized it should always offer me that group to share the link with.
Well, that's Facebook for you.
Okay, the frozen face is at mid-laugh. All right. We shared links. Set them out. Very crazy Friday.
I know, right?
So I woke up at like almost 6.
Maskless.
Yeah. Fell asleep without wearing the mask.
I knew it was gonna happen. You know, that's why I pulled away.
Why did you pull away and not wake me up?
Because I thought you were still awake. That's a common problem with people and you.
No, I'm cuddling with you, forgetting to wear my CPAP mask. And your solution is to pull away.
No, because I pulled away to say, like, okay, sleep na. And then, you know, then you'd be disentangled from me so that you'd wear your mask.
But you didn't see me do that.
No, because I was sleepy too. Okay? Stop accusing me of having slept after. I think we just fell asleep at the same time. It was late, we were tired.
I thought you were still playing.
No.
Because I know I was like dropping out of consciousness really
I
fast.
stopped playing when we cuddled na. I put my phone away. Well, I said like one moment because I charged it.
Mhm.
Yeah. So wear your mask today, despite the moderate risk of foam particulates in your.
Yeah, and then I shared you the email.
Yeah, at least there's steps.
There's that filter, which according to the filter's guidelines should be replaced weekly, but it's a 500 peso filter. So what? Seriously?
Just fill up the claim form under the Philips side, and then let's see how the process goes from
And then
there.
the alternative CPAP machines are like 120,000.
Well, this wasn't that far away.
Exactly, but I don't think the one that's like a discount of whatever the previous price was, right?
Yeah, because it's a recall.
So, ouch. Uh, let's see.
I guess you'll just have to empty an envelope.
Or Drury Rico felt.
No, don't do that. Don't Bosconia is that could be very wrong. Oh hey,
Hey,
Kenny.
Kenny.
Yeah, we're just chilling, waiting for people to come in. But thank you for joining.
Yeah, so there was that funny moment earlier when Jed messaged that he was in the area. So I immediately messaged that, if he's not on a rush, I can rush down. I can hand him the cat containers,
Mm-mm.
leftover
Cat food containers.
leftover plastic containers that he can use for cat food when he feeds the cats. But then he mentioned that, he really had to head home. But, he was asking, so you guys are in one of the corner buildings, right? Then he sent a photo. And I'm like, yeah. I can flash. I can shine a light to see if you can see me. So standing out there and waving the light. Ooh. And then he messaged, I see you. I see you.
I'd like for this to be the first time you've ever done this, but no, this is not the first time you've done this, and it's not even just in this condo. Even in Cubao, you tried to. Can you see me? Can you see me?
And I'll be yelling, hello, open here.
I know. So yeah,
Although Cubao wasn't as high, right? That was 14.
yeah, that was a lower floor, but it was noisier because it was next to EDSA.
Yeah.
So it was hard to defeat that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Toby has a flashlight precisely for this purpose. Thanks to my brother who gave him an emergency light with
And it
like,
has a strap. So I wore the strap.
and different blinking.
Because if I didn't
settings.
hold the strap, I might drop it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So that was fun. I wouldn't say it is a mini rave though. Because rave implies there's more people. So
And in other non-essential news is that I gave in because I gave in on the one end because like I know a lot of the drag queens are in Kumu, and then like I figured, oh, fine, I'll finally sign up for Kumu because sometimes like they'll end the show on Facebook and then they'll move to Kumu and then like we can't follow. So like I want to be able to follow, so I signed up for that, and then I finally gave in. Like if I'm going to be testing other platforms, I might as well sign up for TikTok and like I guess I'll see what that's all about, and then. It's still the same thing. I'm following a bunch of drag queens over there.
So we've been talking about what type of content Rocky can create for TikTok. I don't think I'll join that. Kumu, I was already there.
Yeah, you were.
But I don't think I'll reactivate my account. That's not a story I will talk about on air. But it's nice that you'll be there to be able to support them.
I mean, and then I can like thankfully Kumu can be played on desktop.
Yeah,
and so I can stream that. And then so if there's a
there
show,
are lots of options that will be useful there.
yeah.
So
And the main goal is like if the drag queens have a show, I'm sure because like I've skimmed the other content and like no, it's like this is not my thing.
Well, I could create a TikTok account and then just invite people to send me a photo and a short write up about them, and I'll just talk about them as a post. So I'll just shade people on demand.
No, that's really not going to do much for your online reputation. Where you just have an account all about throwing shade.
Yeah, but then people would be like, do me.
I tried that for a while on Twitter, remember? But it's hard to throw shade at people you don't know.
Yeah, but then again, it's TikTok, so.
Yeah, it can go viral in all the wrong ways. So dumb. I don't recommend this. But yeah, I'm sorry, Kenny. It's like with all due respect, you're the only one on the stream so far, so we're just hanging.
No, but we can start.
Yeah, we can start with it. I was just thinking that there's not a lot of like Transformers toy related stuff. Not that it's probably not the platform for it, but then I'm kind of curious to see what I could do along those lines. Because then it's not, I don't have to dance, nor do I have to be on camera much, except for my hands, maybe. Maybe not even. And then, but like I said, it's so weird. It's like zero toy content.
Or there are, but it's just really hard to find. Plus,
No,
there's
I've been like trying different hashtag. Their hashtag searches naman and stuff, and then it's nothing. And then actually some of the Transformer stuff is like questionable LGBT stuff. It's like, can we not call them Transformers? So yeah.
mm,
All right. Let's I guess get the show on the road. So give us a moment while we roll the intro.
Oh yeah! Baduy Pride!
hello. This is Toby.
And this is Rocky, who
And if it's-
apologizes for the inefficient intro.
And if it's your first time here, welcome to Baduy Pride, a little space on the internet where we talk about anything we want.
This is completely unscripted and not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. Join us as we talk about everything and anything random live.
And if it's not your first time here, thank you so much for joining us again. It's a Friday, and it's our last episode for this year's Pride Month.
Yes. And it's no, it's no longer Pride Month.
Yeah, you're right.
It's July.
We only were able to do a few more Pride Monthy
Yeah, so
topics earlier this week.
we're done. We're done. It was June at the start of the week, and now it's July. So yeah, we're done with Pride.
but
Welcome to Wrath.
unlike other companies, we still have our flag up.
Yeah, flags. Plural. One, two. Okay. So at least there's that.
And tonight's topic is all about personality types.
Tests.
Tests.
It's
I
not-
thought types.
I'm gonna have to double check. Isn't that what the
Well,
request
most
was?
tests are to find out your type anyway, so I think it's the same thing. Well, let's get
One is the test, one is the end result.
let's get the main.
See, personality test, what it's about. There are many types. MBTI, animal in a picture. Corina, blood types, even horoscope. Are people really fit in a certain category? And then she has references. It's a Mitch topic, obviously. But then, like, what? Oh, the animal you first spot says a lot about your personality. Oh, so everything. She cited a bunch of different like examples of personality tests. So, a lot of personality tests, ultimately can be traced back to
Hey, Jen.
Jungian philosophy, right? It's Carl Jung who postulated, who proposed that there are.
Jed, do you see me?
Oh my
Do
god,
you see me?
you're blinding the camera. Okay, there are archetypes of human behavior or personality, and then people can fall into these particular archetypes. And then I feel like every single personality test, to some degree, owes their origins to that. Because as long as we're working off that principle that people can fit into these little categories, then it kind of supports the personality theory.
A lot of these categorization of people were really because they were part of studies. They were attempts to codify and categorize people in order to further understand and in some ways predict their expected movements or personalities or decisions. And this goes
And there's Mitch. Hey, Mitch.
this goes in many layers.
Yeah.
Like you have the more basic gender sexist biases of male and female. The men tend to be this type, female tend to be this type. But then you then go break down into further subcategories depending on who you ask. So we kind of listed a bunch of possible ones. Everything from personality tests to horoscopes to enneagrams. Is that how you say that?
Yeah. I mean, if you go back even, so there, Carl Jung, proposed that there are 4 major archetypes.
Mhm.
This being the self, the persona, the shadow, and the animal or animus,
Mhm.
which is like, and then, it is also where things like the ego, unconscious, collective unconscious came in. It's a bunch of different things.
Mhm.
And I don't necessarily think one is better than the other, but it is what it is. So I guess this is the pro and con.
And then
I always feel a personality test
Mhm.
is that because it's trying to create like general rules for it's trying to use sort of collectivism or just that a majority tends statistical probability to like to like determine or to classify human behavior. And then naturally, there are always exceptions to the rule.
Yes.
And but then it's easy to just fall into the trap of, but the test says I'm this.
And that's the thing about it. Um, I don't think the tests were ever really intended to mean concrete categorizations. They tended to be more on positioning and defining where you were within a certain spectrum, or where you lean towards in a grouping. So it wasn't, I think, until the horoscopes got more popular that suddenly these types became identities. So
Mm.
when it comes to horoscopes, and yes, they do change as time passes. You have people who are so proud to say, "Well, I'm a Gemini, so I'm blah 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 blah," or "I'm a Capricorn, and that means I tend to be blah blah blah." And a lot of it does fall under cold reading, so to speak, in the sense of statements are written in ways that they apply to so many possible people, and then there's so many of those type of statements in a single descriptor. Therefore, you will always find yourself fitting in with at least one or two of the terminologies presented for that type.
Hmm. And then I always wonder also sometimes if does it become chicken and egg ish, and like you read about the zodiac,
So you start acting that
you
way.
see certain things that fit you, and then you embrace it, and therefore all the traits of your zodiac sign are like,
Or you use it as an
Yeah.
excuse to explain why you'll do certain things. I can't help it. I'm Scorpio, so I'll be an
I
a
knew you were gonna cite Scorpio.
It's the most. I mean, it doesn't really just limit to Scorpio. Leo will do the same. Virgo will do the same. Capricorns will do the same. In other words, they all will do the same.
Yeah, and then Kenny cited like there's like way more than just your main zodiac sign. Well, the all the charts have always been there. It's just that I feel like people are getting really bored, and then we're in that phase of like social media where yeah, let's dig further and kind of look into it and use the positioning of the stars to somehow give meaning to things. So
Yeah, because somehow the gravitational forces of constellations, light years away, have greater effect on us than the magnetism and other existing forces in our same planet.
so obviously we're like not very big fans of the horoscope, but then it works for a lot of people, so whatever. I mean there's no getting away from it.
Let's just ignore the fact that the starscape in the sky looked very different
Yes.
many years, many centuries, many decades, whatever scope of time you look at it.
Even like and this is like just digging on zodiacs and not personality tests, but my favorite annoyance about Mercury retrograde. I mean, retrograde motion is not even literally the planets moving backwards. It's just the way that our perspective changes because we're all orbiting the sun and catch each other in terms of planets at different times, and then people blame so many things on Mercury retrograde.
Now, mind you, this is coming from us, and me. I am someone who does have some level of um, belief towards things. Are there are things beyond science? I do have that part.
I
of me.
I I have that side of me too.
However, it's not the stars or the constellations, guys. Those are just symbolic representations of something greater. So to literally say, "Oh, the Venus is in retrograde right now, and that's why I act this way," that's bull.
Yeah. So, and that's why I always like, I am appreciative of having read Julius Caesar, the Shakespearean play in high school, because it has the line that the fault, dear Brutus, is not in the stars, but in ourselves, that we are underlings. So it was coded into that, like talking about how you should defy fate. So Ken was asking, do we know about our blah 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 sign? Obviously not. I didn't bother.
That was the sun, moon, and rising signs. Just to define it for those who cannot see Kenny's comment right now.
I didn't. I just really wanted to blah blah blah.
But we
Yeah.
whenever we cite the comments, we have to help the viewers. But yeah, I used to be super into that.
Okay,
I had
I'm
my
sure.
time. I had my time. I was super. Oh, I'm a ganyan, 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 ganyan. And I will admit, there was a point in time after making all these claims, I felt like, oh, see, it's all falling into place because I am accepting this and that. But then I realized it was all falling into place because I was surrounded by people who were reacting as if that was fact.
Yeah.
So since they knew I was like this, therefore they knew I'd act this way. Therefore, they were acting in a way to avoid doing this and that.
Yeah. So,
So
it's all playing the same
So it's
game.
it's pretty much like an echo chamber wherein you're all following this script because that's what you're expected to do. But ever since I've ignored all this and didn't really give a crap about it, life has pretty much still been just as
And I always like trying to resolve Western and Eastern zodiacs because both are kind of based on
yeah.
your relationship with where the stars were at the
Because
day
I
you were
guess
born.
even if the stars are like all around the planet where you were born in terms of the continent matters.
Yeah. And then there was one book though my mom had where it cross referenced Western and Eastern, and so it would be you like I'm a Virgo dog, so
Mhm.
what would that mean? Although I didn't factor in element or blah blah blah. So anyway, that's one. Then the next most common like personality test
Oh,
that
God.
I know.
I'm already running my eyes.
I know, and I abhor it too. Is the Myers Briggs Test Index? Okay, so the MBTI, and the MBTI manifests in different ways. The chief among them is like whenever you see a test that has 16 results,
Mhm.
then it is really an MBTI test. Disguised as that. So there's a website called 60 Personalities that
Mhm.
very very popular. I mean, like, and we all did it because it's like a fun quiz thing. Um, and but it's basically the 16 Myers Briggs Test Index classifications. So the challenge with, I mean, and I'm not going to bother debunking MBTI. There is what's this? I think there's an Adam. Was this ruins the internet video or whatever that series? I forget the precise name. He has a nice, quick like explanation of why the MBTI is weird because it wasn't even developed by like it's not developed with any true degree of science. It's like someone who took Carl Jung's theories and like super ran with it. Because even if you look at the indexes, some of them don't make sense. So the first one is fine because that is extroversion versus introversion. So that does seem like literal polar opposites. But then you have sensing versus intuition. So still not bad because it's still like things you conceive versus things you actually
Internalize.
yeah. But then you have thinking versus feeling, and that feels weird to pit them against one another
Mhm.
into a scale.
But then again, that has roots in terms of um, gender bias, as we're in you're more emotional or you're more intellectual or
Mhm.
logical.
And then the last one being judging versus perceiving, which this one I don't. I don't fully appreciate how this is a scale because um, how can you judge without basing it off of sensory input or what you
Mm.
perceive? So it's that weird like thing like that. So anyway, and then MBTI, since it's a scale, um, but you come up with a test index based on if you were majority this or majority that, you can be on the cusp of any of these four indexes.
Mhm.
And but because you scored one question in favor of one or the other, then suddenly you're extrovert versus
Mhm.
introvert. So like so it's like it's like on the head of a pin that it makes a decision, and it's not always great. And then because it's a scale, uh, you can change on the scale, especially if you were in the cusp. And then depending on the way the test was worded, and how it was implemented, you can swing either way. So uh, I know it said that like a proper Myers Briggs test index is a really, 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 really long test.
Mhm.
So mind numbingly long that it eliminates sort of that awareness of the test, so you don't
Yes.
answer in a way
Which is
that you
how
want
they
to
should
do.
be.
Yeah,
But then, of course, that's not what most people take.
it's the internet.
And therefore, what most people take has them consciously taking tests to see what they are because they want to confirm that's what they are.
Hello, Rehan. I felt that way with like because before almost every year, every few years when I was in grade school, we would take the MBTI. Like
Mhm.
up after a certain point, they started making us take the MBTI, and I remember the very first time I scored INTJ.
Mhm.
Then the next time I took the test, the questions were feeling familiar, so then I could answer as an INTJ
Mhm.
and still get a similar result. So there are times like I could exaggerate certain
Mhm.
aspects to fall still in that pattern. And that's, of course you're gonna say, but that's not how you're supposed to take a test. But then who's to say, right? Um, it's like poisoning the logical fallacy, poisoning the well, where
Mhm.
you know that you're INTJ, you expect yourself to still be INTJ. So what's to say that your answers are truly honest, or you are consciously or unconsciously steering yourself to your previous result? So then it gets tricky, and then I have felt this way every time I encounter a personality test that was based on MBTI.
Mhm.
I can tell the coloring and flavoring, and then then it's hard to step outside of myself and just be like honest into my state now
Mhm.
versus how I get there. Because I know the very last time I tried 16 personalities, I came out extroverted. Which is
Mhm.
like, oh, that's new. I've never tested extroverted, but and it was very similar. Parang it was ENT something. It wasn't even JP or whatever. So yeah, so there's that thing. And then it's tricky pa when a lot of companies try to use some of these tests, and then not all companies pay for the tests. So they use like public versions of it
Mhm.
for test administration because they don't want to pay the fees. So like I know a bunch of companies that would include MBTI in the recruitment assessments. But then what does that really say? It's like it's not really a criteria for like how well or not you're gonna do the job. And then if you're using a pirated version of the test because you're not paying for it, then what's the deal, right? So it's tricky. I don't agree with the use of some of these personality tests as a make or break, do you hire the person? But it can be potentially useful for
Mhm.
profiling
Mhm.
and like not necessarily saying that they shouldn't hire or not, but saying that people of this maybe category tend to perform well in roles of XYZ nature. And then maybe that should be like steering a career path in that angle. I don't know.
Mhm.
Something like that. Do you remember what your MBTI test results tend to be?
No. I think the last time I took these type of tests were even before college.
Oh, okay.
The other closer thing I had related to this, but it wasn't the 16 personality thing, was so there was at work there was the four types. I forgot the directors. Um,
Oh, that's your leadership style.
DISC.
Okay.
Yeah, which again wasn't a this is what you are, but more this is how you approach things now.
Yes.
And I think that's what people keep forgetting about these tests and these types.
Yeah, they're not absolute. You're not.
They're not defining you.
Yeah, you're not fixed.
They're just identifying how you're choosing to do things or how you're approaching things.
Now.
And that's the irony which I find when people are very, but I'm like this and I'm supposed to be like this. I'm like, yeah, so what's your horoscope? Well, I'm like, yeah. So why are they contradicting?
And I think that's the problem. Like we got conditioned by things like horoscopes, which supposedly define who we are,
Mhm.
like entirely based on just the circumstances of our birth, versus a lot of these personality assessments, which are only measures on a scale of the moment that you take the test,
Mm-mm.
but are still possible. Can possibly change. Then it's just weird. So you really shouldn't like invest too much into it or like appreciate it as the now and that this is how you answer the test and you can
Mhm.
reflect on why this is the result that came out, but then don't think that you're absolutely locked in.
Now, a nice one, which we both have ready, is the Adobe creative types.
We both know that.
Um, So Adobe recently released the mycreativetype.com website.
I don't know how recent this is anymore.
Yeah, this is a few years back.
Yeah.
But I'd say recently in the sense that it was sooner than later.
Wow.
But it basically allows people to get a feel for how they tend to approach creativity and how they tend to view it. Amazing site, beautifully done, very, very evocative. In terms of accuracy, again, we never really should see or look at these tests as a matter of accuracy, but we should always see them as a matter of recognizing where you are in a spectrum of possible ranges.
Yeah, I can't remember what I got. I think I was either a thinker or producer. I can't remember. I would be curious to take it again now, only because like my life is so different now than like a few years ago. But this is the one where like your results are either the artist, the thinker, the adventurer, the maker, the producer, the dreamer, the innovator, and the visionary.
What I liked about this site is the test is harder to game.
The questions
Because-
are quite abstract.
And most of the time, you'll look at the questions and you'll find yourself agreeing with both.
Yeah.
So then you're forced to follow what you feel you lean more towards. For example, one question reads, when traveling, you always need a destination or a direction. And I'd commonly say both. Both count. They're both important. But then I start thinking, okay, if I only had to choose one, did I know where to go or did I know where I'm going? And that kind of then tells me what's more interesting. So I prefer tests when they're like this. I hate it when the tests are so blatantly obvious.
Yeah. And to be fair, there are like even give credit to 16 personalities because that test, some of the wording is like quirky enough that it's hard to interpret like what the question is leaning towards. And this is someone, like I said, who's taken the MBTI, oh my god, so many times that I know I can if I don't think about it, I can game the test. Then it's kind of funny that way. So yeah, so there is that perspective. We're taking the creativity test now. If we can help it, we're looking at it, we're trying to answer. And the transitions between slides are like, oh my god, super awesome. Which is what you would expect from the likes of Adobe for something creative. Naturally, the test also has to be creative. If you need a link, I mean, we can probably post a link later. But yeah. So Tristan says they tend to describe tendencies as one should see them as a spectrum. Yes, exactly. And it's not a permanent thing. It's your point in the spectrum now, but not not always.
And that's why I don't know, I really appreciate when people are like, I'm kind of like this now, or I kind of approach things like this now, compared to those who are like, oh, but I'm ganyan, so I don't do that. And I'm like, okay.
It is a thing. It is a thing.
I think I'm down to the last two questions.
Yeah, you
no, I'm not. I still have a
you're
few
quite
more.
ahead. Okay, so what other tests in the animal one? I haven't seen in a while. Let me load that from Mitch's.
So while you're loading that, we also have the types of leaders.
There's that.
So there
yes.
are those that say that in terms of leadership styles, there are 5 main categories: the authoritarians, the participative, the delegative, the transactional, and the transformational leader. And this is the funny thing about this. We can see them as 5 types, but depending on the time and era,
Yeah, this used to be 4.
certain ones will be seen as the right and the wrong way.
Oh, there is that too.
Because like now, if you talk about these 5, people will say, oh, these are bad ways to do it. And now it has to be transformational. You have to be ganyan. But there was a point in time wherein transformation and the like were not really seen as leadership approaches, but they were just seen as being someone with initiative. And the proper way to do it was to be a delegative leader. You should be able to know how to tell people to do that. So it's funny how those things change. But they, again, just show you that the temporal nature of these types is important.
Yeah, and I remember, I mean, depending on the time you took it, like, I remember there used to be just 4. And like, oh, there's five, and what's transformational? And then if you
Am
think
I a fortune cookie or a birthday cake?
your birthday cake, what am I?
You're a fortune cookie.
Yeah, see, yeah,
Sorry. Is my creativity more method or madness?
madness.
It's not working.
Toby's costume meltdowns in the middle of the night. Totally. Okay. I'm trying to think if there was
Aha! I
a,
got my results. I am a visionary. I imagine the impossible.
oh, you like it has five eyes and it's a cactus.
Full of ideas to see the potential and the possibility everywhere. I remember I wasn't a visionary the first
Before.
time I took this
Mm.
test.
But you also weren't like super focused on it. You're like making very snap decisions and answer. I mean, it's like the circumstances of how you take these tests would probably affect the outcome.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't.
Yeah,
put it
I was a dreamer
Impressive.
before.
dreamer. Okay, I'm getting through.
So yeah, so you have the leadership types, which again, times change. The way the world works affects what is reflective of a good leader. Um, the way leadership is even defined changes. Um, in the past, an authoritarian leader was seen as the most prominent and positive one because we wanted leaders who were very direct, leaders who will tell us what to do. Because there was an understanding before that the leader is really the one who tells us what to do, and everyone knows their place in the great machine.
Mm.
But then, of course, as philosophies and mindsets changed, we started to see that being authoritarian wasn't necessarily a healthy way of leadership, and so on and so forth.
Okay, I'm still the thinker.
Mhm.
It's literally a rock. Deep thoughts, big questions. Fine.
So let's go to the animals.
Oh, wait. The which animal you first see? I don't know about this one. This just feels super random. And like, what if you're colorblind? And then this test has a lot of red greens. So then, like, would you end up with very different
Now,
results?
now these which animal you first see tests, I personally feel can be connected back. Remember those psychological tests wherein you are walking down the road, you see a turtle lying on its back. What do you do? So it's those sort of tests wherein they try to disarm you. They try to have you see what your initial directions go. And most tests really do that because they try to make you answer without thinking. But then here it becomes more what does your eye first see? So the other versions of this are like a block of text and
Yeah.
you zoom in on the first word you read, which then is affected by your vocabulary and your reading skills.
Yeah. And just your pattern recognition. And it's like,
Kenny mentions, which friend's character are you?
yeah, we'll get to that test in time, I'm sure. And then, yeah, so I think it's a little too random for my benefit. And like, um, and like, it's like whenever I do like what is the first blank you see, then I'm always worried about, oh my God, should I focus in the middle? Should I look towards the right so I'm not looking at the middle because everybody's looking at the middle? It's like there are like so many ways that you might be caught in certain things, and that's but by choosing to go against it, are you going against your natural instinct? Therefore, you're defying the parameters of the quote unquote test, and so yeah, so it's a lot of overthinking.
So
for
in many
silliness.
ways, we are already contradicting ourselves. We
Yeah.
are already talking about how people do have a certain type and how people do have a tendency to do things in a certain way. But that's not to say we're therefore ignoring the fact that people do have types. We're just stating that while people do have certain tendencies and types, those types are still based temporarily on who they are at that moment. And at the same time, they are also still, in many ways, conscious choices of what you choose to retain as your personality type and approaches. Because people are adaptive, people are able to change. You might be someone who is also always easily distracted, and it's easy to say, "Oh, that's because I'm of the water element, so I'm always shifting and blah blah blah, or that's because I'm Virgo and I'm always like two minds about doing things. And you can choose to view it that way, or you can simply say, "Oh, okay, so I'm kinda acting like a Virgo, but is that what I want? Is that what I should be now?"
Yeah, because there's ultimately the power of choice. On a side note, I keep because you have the Adobe Creative types on your screen. They look like they're characters from Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared.
That's why I like them.
I know that's why you like them. Okay, okay. So and the question of I don't think necessarily that archetyping is bad,
Hmm.
but I think that it is hard to figure out those archetypes accurately and to design assessments that truly capture it. Because I mean, of course, there's testing bias and the bias that creeps into the very design of the test and how these are crafted. I know that a lot of, especially a lot of MBTI questionnaires are very Western, and then like some of these scenarios are like, I've never been in this scenario, but okay, I'll try to think of an answer like what if, and then and that affects your result, and then yeah, then things from testing environment to your personal situation to even just how your day has been going up until the point that you decide to take this test. Then all these things can impact you. So I don't have a good answer for like a test that I super like. And then I guess take it as you will, where you want to go with these things.
Yeah, I appreciate the types because they allow you to get perspective. They allow you to look at yourself better, and they allow you to identify how you may be received or be reacting to others. For example, when it comes to gaming, since this is Baduy Pride, we will not ignore that. There are as well. There are also what we call player archetypes,
Mm.
and player archetypes was even defined at some point as gaming archetypes, which led to a lot of debate online about simulationists and so on and so forth.
Narrative.
And I will
whatever.
not get into that war. As far as I'm concerned, that is part of history, and that is not what I want to focus on. What I want to focus on is the fact that if one takes time to look at the archetypes, it's like in games, let's say you're in lack of a better term, you're a power gamer because you're the type of guy who loves looking at how you min max your stats, you make sure you're ready for every situation, all this and that. That's not wrong. That's not bad. But it is if you're choosing to force that on everyone else and you're making sure they do things your way. And then you claim it's because that's what I am, so you have no choice.
Mm-mm.
That's being an asshole.
Yeah.
And that same thing applies to everything. You're at work and you're a ganyan ganyan director, so that's your excuse why you'll choose to be rude.
Yeah, or it's like I'm sorry, I'm super emotional because of the way the stars have aligned. I mean, like you're not gonna be able to file leave for that, at least not with pay. You know.
But don't get us wrong. There's a world of difference between saying I'm so emotional because I'm a Capricorn compared to I'm kind of emotional right now.
Yeah, like
and
I'm having a bad mental wellness
I'm,
day.
I'm feeling very sensitive about things. Those are two very different things. It's one thing to recognize your state of being. It's another thing to embrace a label as defining why you're in that state of being. And I think that's what I just really hate when people embrace the labels as barriers to hand wave why they have a right to act a certain way.
Or that you blame behavior on an archetype classification instead of just accepting or owning up to your own actions. in the life.
Yes.
So Mitch is asking, do companies use similar kinds of tests to check new hires? And the answer is yes. And I've witnessed conversations like that where you literally have upper management asking like, don't we have other tests that we can administer? Because then we can mention it on like our client materials that we say that when we hire, they go through personality tests and whatnot. Or there are and I'm not just talking about standard MBTI. There are like very robust professional HR solutions that like really put them through these proprietary tests. Like they have to install special software and you have there are a limited number of licenses and a number of test uses, and you have to top up more test uses later,
And-
and all these things. And it's sort of like it's the recruitment equivalent of hygiene theater, or it maybe there's benefit, maybe there isn't. It's hard to tell, but it's nice when you do it because it looks impressive.
It's also part of the ongoing saga of buzzwords that are popular to use when it comes to
Like
business.
buzzwords again.
Because that's what they tend to be.
I know, I
Um,
know.
Whereas the real better way to view it is as means to see if a person is fitting or works well with the company culture that's already existing.
Hmm.
Because one can look at it as, oh, he's blah 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 blah, so he won't be a fit with the company. And the other way to do it would be, okay, so he shows tendencies of this, which means there might be some friction in terms of working with him. Are we okay with that? Should we talk to him about that?
Hmm.
Baka naman he's just nervous and that's why he's presenting that way. And again, those are two very different ways and perspectives to view people when you look at personality typing. God knows the many times we've had interviews with people who are very different later on once they're hired,
That is true.
because
That happens a lot.
they've broken through the need to put the best foot forward and look like you're totally okay. And um, this all again boils down to how we're trained in school to be perfect. So the moment we're not perfect, we bullshit. And in a job, it doesn't work that way. When
Yeah.
you're not able to do something, you ask for help because you all have to work together to make it work.
Oh, sorry, I'm yawning. I get yawning in the middle of the show. One thing I guess I always cite, especially when it comes to personality testing, especially when it's applied to hiring criteria or to work in any way, is that I love citing the Hawthorne effect.
Mhm.
So the Hawthorne effect is that principle where the knowledge that you are under observation uh, changes your behavior, and this stems from I don't know how accurate, but the way I learned about the Hawthorne effect, the story that was told was basically there's a factory and then they wanted to test the impact of lighting on productivity. So they tried reducing the light by 50% from normal, and then they observe output and blah blah blah, and then they increased the light intensity to twice than what it used to be, and then they check productivity and blah blah blah, and then they put it back to normal and they check blah blah blah, and then basically whatever the stages were, every phase of the way productivity increased. So it wasn't the lights. It was the fact that they knew that there were a bunch of scientists that were watching them every day,
Mhm.
and it put more pressure to do better.
So it's religion.
Sort of, but in the sense that, so now when you are taking a test, especially for work, uh, it's hard to say just be yourself and just take it as you will, because naturally you're now going to filter, like, I'm gonna answer this in a way that I
Mhm.
want to be perceived, or the way I want them to know me,
Mhm.
and maybe that will make me more hireable. In the same way that when you're interviewing someone in person, which in itself is sort of like a personality assessment, um, uh, do you answer the question as honestly as you can? But typically, no, you're gonna dress it up well, and it hence the many people who, when asked the question, what is like your biggest flaw or biggest area of opportunity, then you get weird answers like, I'm too much of a perfectionist, or I work too hard. Like, no, no, that doesn't sound good. So, and I know we talked about this in our job related episode before, but like it really just pays to be honest and for your own sanity, because especially with experienced interviewers and test administrators, it's super obvious when you're trying to not be yourself and to be a better version of yourself, and that's where like tests like these like really fall. Okay. Um, what else? Oh, okay. So Kenny's like, yeah, those personality tests for work make me biased and pretty up the answers. I mean, and it's not inherently bad. It's just like it's human behavior. Your chances of getting a source of income are on the line. So naturally, you're gonna do what it takes.
And it's the
to get
same
in.
everywhere.
Yeah.
It's the same with dating. It's the same in social media. It's the same in family gatherings. As long as you are hoping to win or to come out good, then you'll try to game the system. Um, it's only later on when you're not really trying to win something and you just really want to see where things fall that you'll stop trying so hard and you'll just let it happen. And that's where the typing then comes in. To use typing as a means to recognize where you are is helpful. To use typing as a means to label what you are, you're just shooting yourself in the foot because you are now consciously hampering things that might not even apply to you.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I had a friend who was all parang, oh, I won't do that kasi I'm ganito. And supposedly, mga ganyan tao, they don't enjoy it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, wait, so you don't know if you'll enjoy it, but you read
That you won't.
that people who are like that don't, so you won't.
You won't even try.
And that was very disturbing for me. Kasi parang, for the person to not even realize they're already viewing their decision making that way was already parang, oh my.
Umami. Okay, so Kenny shares one weird personality test he had to take for work is knowing your love language, which they were translating into how they would reward employees for great work. That's interesting. I mean, like, I'd rather not, me, it's like, I'd rather not do a personality test and then just run a survey asking people what they want.
And isn't that like tiptoeing into no man's land of things HR should never ask?
Yeah, I know. It's like, so what if your love language is touch? Then what is HR gonna do to reward you? Nico.
I think that was a buzzword moment again. I think that was a buzzword moment.
But or it just falls into the because HR departments and recruitment teams are often pressured to like justify decisions. Then let's do personality tests because it feels
Yeah, but the love
psychologically.
language, kasi that's the new buzz thing, that there's the
Yeah.
5 love languages. So to connect it now to HR feels like,
Yeah, it just feels like they were scrambling for a test to show management and like we administered the test and this is what we got.
see, Kenny mentions hug you or pat on the head for good work. But,
Hugging can be inappropriate.
yeah, and just because that's their love language doesn't mean you have to consent to touch the person.
Yep, especially at work.
So are you then saying that the office, hi, so we've determined that touch is your love language. Can we now have consent from this point on to pat you when we feel you're doing a good job? I don't get it.
Does everyone need like a McDonald's style badge that instead of like the stations you have completed, it's now your different first test personality results and like
I'm very
ooh,
bothered.
huggable, no consent.
I'm very bothered. It's just weird. That's something that if you view it, it is an internet glimpse into your
Yes,
personality.
Mitch, I was being the fortune cat.
So yeah, that it kind of freaks me out. I hope that was a jest, Kenny. Because if it wasn't, let's not talk about where you work. let's keep it off the record.
Yeah. Let's not go there. Or even if it was a past employer, let's not bring that up. Okay.
Now let's go to the less serious types.
BuzzFeed,
Now, actually, let's even go further than that.
the internet,
Magazines
same thing.
were very infamous for all these tests.
If
wherein-
you answered mostly A's,
Yes.
then you're this. Mostly B's, then
And-
you're this.
and magazines loved that in the past because one, it allowed people to feel very engaged. They were interacting with the article. They weren't just reading it. Two, they were hitting gold already with the virality at that point, even before the term virality was prominent. Because the moment you have your results, you'll want to show it off.
Yes.
And the moment you show it off, people will want to take the test as well.
And just get the magazine or get a copy of it somehow. Which is like, if you think about the early internet, and there's still parts of it, BuzzFeed is a
Mhm.
good example of this. But if you think about the early internet, a lot of quizzes were like obviously magazine quizzes translated into a web form. Or why sites like OkCupid, and as much as OkCupid is a dating site, it was a dating site that used quizzes to like match you up with people based on your different answers. And things like when Kenny joked earlier about which friend are you, I mean, that was a classic magazine style format
Mhm.
because the scenarios that are often cited in these pop culture related quizzes
And ano,
are lifted from the show.
and those are magazine, and those were pop. Sorry, those were commercial gold because one, you already had the virality of people wanting to answer and spread their answers. Two, you were marketing a show,
Yeah.
and then three, you even marketed in a way that they now felt they were
Part of the show. You use personal pronouns as you talk about characters of the show.
And yeah, so Mitch mentions like those movies. What's your number? And a test on how many people you, slept with.
Oof.
And there's a lot of that. There were stuff like
Oh my god, I blame the Cosmos and Red
Yes.
Books of the world and all those magazines, all those women's
they
magazines.
would even define what type of lover would be perfect for you, or where would be your dream vacation, because they would identify this and that. But of course, a lot of them would be leading.
Yeah, because it's literally like, do you enjoy having coffee at open cafes on the street?
Or would you rather drink martinis at the beach? And then, of course, in the end, one has
Paris
and the other
or
one
the
is-
beach. So it's like, ah. But those are like all cheeky fun. And then I know, like, especially like me in my early days of LiveJournal, before it was purchased by the Russians, there were a lot of quizzes that integrated easily into LiveJournal. And then like you could answer the quiz, and then it would give you the embed code to put your quiz result
Mhm.
in the thing. And it wasn't just like it was a dynamic thing that could lead you back to the quiz to take it again.
But mind
Which is
you,
great.
live journal na yan.
Yeah.
Because if you go further back, during the eras of GeoCities and the like,
Hey, LiveJournal coexisted with GeoCities, okay?
yeah, but live journal was still ahead because GeoCities was like, do your own quiz, man. And then post the results.
GeoCities was do everything.
Post the results by adding this code to your code. Oh my god.
Hey, LiveJournal wasn't that far away.
Web
Music
rings.
was still web rings. And you could jump from blog to site, not blog to blog, site to site.
Because there weren't really good search engines back then. So web rings was the way.
Yeah. So it's just funny how, and I don't mind like those kind of silly quizzes for entertainment. And even then, you're still going to be worried about how you'll be perceived. It's like, how many times have you answered any low barrier social media quiz, saw the result, and didn't share it because you didn't agree?
Or
And
worse, you'll take it again. And
until you get the result you
and then,
want.
guys, look, I'm actually ganyan.
I'm a Chandler. So, I mean, and you never know. You never know how often it happens because you only see it when people share it.
Yeah, I remember recently, Hank took a Who Are You in Trece, and he didn't get Hank as a result.
Of course.
So that was just amusing, and I was like,
But to be fair, they're they're as much as one is potentially inspired by the other, but in the end, they are different
yeah,
personalities.
and it just tells you also he just tried to answer it and didn't try to game it.
Yeah. So that's cool.
Jed mentions the first thing you see is the quizzes. Yes.
Yeah, we talked about that a bit earlier, and like those first thing you see, and I think that's super easy to game.
Okay, so blood type personality.
What the hell is
so
blood
that's a-
type personality?
Okay, so first there's blood types.
That sounds worse than
Yeah.
horoscope.
So there's blood types. We know that to be true.
Yes.
But supposedly there are blood type personalities, which
No.
then define what you should eat,
I refuse.
how you should act.
I refuse. Because it's in the same boat as zodiac. It's like the circumstances of your birth define your behavior for the rest of your life. Like, oh my
The
god.
evolution of these things really do follow that pattern.
Yeah.
From pure fantasy to then pseudoscience.
The internet gold.
So yeah. But yeah.
Mitch
Blood
does
type
share
personality.
it's a buzz in Korea. Oh no. I don't know if I wanna bother.
Because there was supposedly, if I remember correctly, it also affects. That's why you're more ruddy, or that's why you have a fairer complexion.
No. Oh, okay then. Then on a related note, what about DNA tests? DNA genotyping and like looking at your potential heredity.
So that's a tricky thing
Mm.
because there are personality expressions that can be traced to biochemical reactions.
Mhm. But to be fair, the DNA tests don't super claim personality.
Yeah.
They're just trying to trace origin
But
and allergies.
but there are, for example, there are genetic markers that will show that you might be more prone to aggression, or there might be genetic markers that um, reflect that you might be more predisposed to athleticism given your genetic background and composition. So those things are present, but the presence of one doesn't necessarily mean the personality of the other.
Yes.
Diba? You might have someone who is very, very capable of physical activity and has the physique because the two genetic um, parents um, combined to a beautiful specimen of
An Adonis.
stamina and strength and all that. But then if the person doesn't feel like doesn't want to be an athlete, they won't be.
Yeah.
And that's what I think people fail to realize about this. And I really despise it when people are like, ay sayang ang tangkad mo, sana nag-basketball player ka.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I'm like, so it's not really, because I know the mindset is take advantage because you're gifted with that, so do this na.
Yeah.
But again, that's such a tragic way to view life, wherein um, you should favor only what you seem to be genetically predisposed to do.
In Transformers comics lore, this is called a functionalist way of thinking.
Mhm.
Which, because in Transformers, it meant that your alternate form defined your role in society. So therefore, if you're a trash truck, you're trash. It became this whole thing. It was a fascinating. There were functionalist. There was a functionalist faction that argued, yeah, that you should just follow what your alternate mode is, and so on and so forth. So, oh my god, I'm curious about this blood type
So there,
personality.
type O
shiz.
is confident, self-determined, strong-willed, and intuitive. Cons are self-centered, and etc. etc. So how does that work if you're also a Leo? Yeah, it's just O is B is passionate, active nature, creative, and strong. Con is selfish, irresponsible, unforgiving, and erratic.
So is that me?
But isn't that still anyone?
Yeah, it's like, okay, an A is earnest, creative, sensible, reserved, patient, and responsible. I feel like these are adjectives that could describe me.
And then,
Stubborn and tense.
let me
I can
know.
be stubborn.
Let me know. So you have creative, but in that same thread,
Reserved
you have reserved.
and sensible.
So someone who is creative might be, I am that. But then someone who's, not really a creative person, will go, I guess I'm reserved.
Hmm.
That's how they work. You see, that's how the
Because you have
code-reading
these
style
like
is
all these
there.
things thrown at it. Because at the same time, AB is cool, controlled, rational, and adaptable.
Mm.
But I think I could be quite cool, cold, and rational. And then confident, self-determined, strong-willed, and intuitive. I also think I could be confident, self-determined, and,
then,
strong-willed.
and again, they have conflicting or contradicting elements in one description. A strong-willed person is rarely intuitive because they're focused on what should be done. An intuitive person doesn't really know what should be done,
but has a feeling, a
yes.
reflective thought on
And then
it.
likewise, confident is different again. So it's come on, people. That's how you can read them.
Yeah.
I would lean more to the idea that yes, blood O people tend to have ulcers and are attracted. Mosquitoes are attracted to them.
Type B has 50,000 times more strains of friendly bacteria than A or O. Wow.
And that's what I see more as viable because they are actual genetic markers and predispositions. So yeah.
So I don't know. Guys. I'm not a fan of this blood
It's not
type
that
thing.
different from the time
It
when
sounds
people
zodiac.
said, okay, your head size implies you're a thinker, rational, and blah blah. because they used to do that. They literally had charts for that. They had
Based on
these
the
large things.
calipers.
Have we forgotten that my lifeline shows that it's that long enough, which means I'm predisposed to getting married this number of times? It's all the same banana. And
Yeah. I think I only have one Cradle of Venus, which is supposed to mean my sex life is awesome. But then I think I've had a pretty good sex life regardless. So much for palmistry.
there was a time feet was the thing people read.
Oh yeah. Yeah, foot size. And then even just like the shape sometimes of your
Of
feet
the
or toes.
insole,
Yeah, yeah.
the depth of the lines. Yeah. And then let's not also forget there's a point in time that it was the number of moles and the position they were.
Oh yes, the mole thing, and like, well, it's like this thing about if you have more moles, it meant something and whatever,
May suerte, yung
or
may,
where they
yung
are.
may nunal malapit sa bibig,
Madaldal.
mas madaldal,
Ah.
mas ganyan. Yung may nunal sa mata, like this one, may third eye, etc., etc. And I believed that when I was younger. Later on, I realized maybe I'm just, everyone can have it, and I just chose to think I was the special one. So yeah, so in the end,
Brian's still here.
I guess in the end for me, um, there's no harm in finding out what type you fall under based on whatever or however they categorize it this
Yeah,
time.
whatever test it is.
When 20 years from now, we might all be joking about how they have a new one, and what's your odor type? And
What's your COVID quarantine personality?
something like that. What's your lockdown personality?
What's your
type?
lockdown
There you go.
personality? Yeah,
LPT. And
that sounds weird.
in the end, I don't see anything wrong if you want to figure out where you fall. But if you choose to limit yourself based on that definition, I really sincerely hope that you realize that is something you've chosen to do. And inherently, there's no harm in choosing where you limit yourself.
Yeah,
So,
that's
for
up to you.
example, I have chosen not to be a basketball player. I have chosen not to be an athlete, although I was at a younger age.
You were a swimmer.
Yeah. And that's my choice. Does that make me any less of a person? Not really, because that was what I chose to do. But if it were something that I'd bring up as, oh, I didn't because I'm Taurus and Taurus people are meant to be stubborn, then why do you need the excuse that someone is making the decision for you when you're going to make it anyway?
Mm.
So just own up to what you want, live with your choices. And if they don't work out, then change them. Because even your type can change.
Yeah, and I go back to my Shakespeare quote where the fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves that we are underlings. And do not let yourself get trapped by this or that test result. And then yeah, it's like it's fun. It may be an indicator of where your mindset is now, but you will always have free will and the power to decide if you like this result or you want to go in a different direction. And if you want to go in a different direction, then you can make changes about it.
Jed mentions mom one time flew in the province
Yeah,
after
it's a funny
class.
story.
Took me to a derma clinic in front of campus and had a mole removed. Sabi niya, a friend told her na hindi raw ako mag-aasawa kasi I had a mole in the path where my tears would run down my nose.
Well, the mole was removed and you seem quite happy now. So did it work?
And then Kenny mentions, except your blood type, that can't change. Well, I will.
What if we do a complete blood transfusion and marrow replacement? What if I become a cyborg connected to a machine that's forever filtering my blood? What if I'm filled with type O from a donor?
Why is Rocky talking like he's me?
Yeah, I love you too. Okay. So yeah, don't get trapped into that. And please stop giving me personality type results or
Cyborg.
horoscope results as a justification for behavior. Or even just please stop blaming retrograde. Number one, Mercury retrograde, if it were true, is only supposed to disrupt communications. But then people seem to make it as anything bad that goes on in your life, it is a Mercury retrograde problem. So no, that's not how that works.
No, you're
But-
not that special.
And then in the end, no, stop blaming the planet. Everybody has bad days, but it really depends on how you choose to receive it and how you respond to it
Mhm.
and how you barrel through.
And knowing some people who do have that retrograde social media posts, I've seen your other posts on other days of the year. You have a lot of bad days.
Yeah. That is shady. That is a taste. If Toby goes to TikTok, he's just gonna throw shade.
No, because I've seen all these other days and they're like,
Or like,
you know,
or it's a whole month.
blah blah
of
blah crap
blaming
happened.
retrograde.
Or blah 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 in the market, or blah 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 treated me like this. And it's not retrograde. It's not Mercury retrograde. Why are you complaining? And then when the retrograde
When
is about
it
to
is
happen,
Mercury,
they're
yeah.
all, oh my god, we have to brace ourselves because.
I don't know. It's like the one. It's a part of horoscopes and astrology that has become popular enough to become widespread knowledge, even though people don't necessarily look into the nuances of it. And then it's very internet appropriate to just blame Mercury. And man, what did the planet do to you, man? It's just living its life close to the sun, forever hotter than any other country.
And if it were real, insurance companies would have been utilizing to make more money.
Maybe, or in the sense of the reverse, like, I'm sorry, we cannot honor any claims made during Mercury retrograde because obviously it is not. It's a
It falls
act of
under
God.
yes, it falls under their clause.
It's natural causes. It's not. That would be bonkers. Be super bonkers. So yeah,
Anyway.
embrace a life of choice, and use all these personality tests for amusement, or maybe like a dipstick test. And you're checking your oil. You're gonna see what the oil level is, and then decide what are you gonna do from this point. How are you going? Do you like being perceived this way? If you don't, what are you gonna change?
And think about the people who identify as Ophiuchus,
Ophiuchus. Okay,
the
what's
other
this?
constellation.
What's the other constellation?
This supposedly should be part of the constellations now because it's a visible new constellation.
Oh.
But of course,
oh.
it messes everyone up because suddenly, oh, I'm not Anna anymore. I'm now this.
Yeah. Where's that time that there's a 13th zodiac and then it messed everything up? Yeah. I remember
So-
that. I remember that news.
You have to think of them too. All right, I think we are closing this episode with that because Baduy Pride will be in retrograde.
Yeah, plus I have like TikTok content to think about. As if. Okay.
But we're very grateful that you joined us tonight, and we thank you for watching.
Yes, and it's always a pleasure. I mean, we can't leave our houses, we can't have guests over, but at least at least we can hang out online and have these chats and feel like we're being together. Even though Kenny's saying silly things that he's still a Taurus either way. I'm like, okay, what else? Okay, so thank you.
That's Kenny trying to make sure that he shows he's stubborn.
Such a Taurus thing. No.
The
I
bull.
hate it because I'm Virgo, and whenever I criticize zodiac, they'll always say, "Oh, that's so Virgo of you." What else?
Yeah, but I keep criticizing things, and I'm Taurus.
So, for questions or suggestions for future episodes, feel free to fill up the Google form at bit.ly Baduy Pride Ideas. Thanks again to Mitch for suggesting this topic today. We I think we'll get around to taking the quizzes you sent in. We haven't taken the actual quizzes you sent, so that would be cool. You can follow us on Twitter, all Toby No Shade, RG Sunico.
You can also check out our blog, baduypride.com, for all the previous episodes and stuff about us.
So feel free to continue the conversation in the comments below, and let us know what are your different personality types, and do you think that we're super wrong, and knowing your personality has changed your life for the better? Then yeah, please explain in 400 words or less. Okay, and then be sure to subscribe for notifications, whether on Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss our next live stream. Once again, I'm Rocky.
And I'm Toby.
And this is
Baduy
Baduy
Pride.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for watching.